Hello, myself Sunil Ramakrishnan. Basically, today we are going to talk about the Formula World, and in this Formula World, we are going to talk about the sales topic. Basically, that is basically sales and GDP topic. Basically, so sales and GDP, what actually that is basically in subscribing 65th number part. Basically, we have already so basically what actually GDP is and what subscription is basically government takes the subscription for the each and every cities, and according to that basically city whatever health related issues happens, whatever the incidents happens in the city, that basically connect is 99% is connected with the subscription plan basically, which is taken by the government basically from the World Bank basically. So sometimes government says that we have taken this subscription plan, and according to the data has not passed, then basically the debate happens with the World Bank. Then basically lots of things happen. But basically few time basically this type of things doesn't happen. Exact data basically is passed. So like this basically the data was not passed. What was the reason that basically auditor basically do the audit basically? Why basically the real data was not connected with the perfect data which was passed basically. So basically they came into conclusion that the old data was creating problem, then the refresh was not happened properly. Like this lots of things basically conflict was happened. Like this basically data was not refreshed. So that was basically normal subscription basically, that was basically the starting of the sales basically, you can say. So the government starts the sales, that also you can see basically, because the environment is always settled by the government only, because government has only the authority to set the environment of the cities, of the states, of the country. That is here basically we are taken the example of India, because I am in India, that's why. If I might be in Singapore, then basically I might be taken the example of Singapore. But I am in India, so I am taking the example of India country. So basically, India country central government basically has take who basically this type of thing who can do basically, who have the knowledge up to the level, who know actually the city is standing, each and every buildings are standing on the base of the subscription plan which government takes. That basically those groups can only understand, those group can only do the subscription basically, who actually know basically the buildings are standing right. So the buildings are standing. Why it's standing? Because the reason is the subscription plan which government has taken basically. Due to that only the building is standing. Otherwise basically there is no magic behind this, that how basically building is standing. So basically the tall buildings basically the how buildings are standing. So basically the logical reason is this only. The data which is passed by the World Bank. So World Bank basically have the each and every buildings data of the cities basically. That's why only they are able to pass the data basically, you can say. That's according to that only they are taking the money basically. So if they are taking the money according to the subscription, according to the data which basically is passed by the central government, and central government has got the data from the state and city government basically. So like this, the data is passed, and according to that only the subscription plan has taken basically. There is no basically extra effort has taken by the central government. There is no extra effort taken by the state government, and there is no extra effort taken by the city government. So according to that only the data has passed basically. So data has passed, the data has verified by the World Bank basically. The World Bank basically by default basically do the verification, and city group basically they don't need to do the verification, because they have that list of the tax which is paid by the buildings basically. So there is no need to verify this also basically. Reason basically each and every tax is paid by the government, sorry, to the government, and then basically government pay the amount to the World Bank. So basically it's the tax connection, just see basically who is paying the tax. So basically the government is taking tax from the public, and that is basically the businessman, the small retail people, and then basically they are paying the money to the World Bank basically. So like this basically the money is paid as a subscription amount, and then basically according to the subscription and according to the data which is passed by the central government, the services is basically activated. That basically you can name this as a service basically, you can say. service of the energy, service of the data basically, which due to that basically the each and every vehicles is getting on. Lots of people says that lots of people says that Activa is running fine basically because the Activa company is paying money to the central government. That's why the Activa is running basically. Otherwise, basically, when they will stop giving money to the government, then just see basically if each and every Activa which is running in the road basically it will run or not. Basically, it will automatically will get closed, and even the garage people can't do anything because it's connected with the energy. Lots of people says that how basically Activa is running. The Activa is running on the base of energies only because the environment contains the Activa energy basically. That's why basically. So basically, there are physical repairing is also there, but mostly when the 100% gets when the 100% gets connects with the vehicle, then only basically the vehicle runs. So basically, in 100%, basically around 1 to 2% is basically government activation. Basically, one more basically example I will take basically there is one school basically just see basically up to what level the government keeps the control with them basically. So basically each and every repeating the word each and every vehicles which is getting on basically they are getting started on the base of government energy basically which is getting passed by the power companies and energy companies, and government is passing the energies on the base of the money is paid by the company basically, and company basically pays the money from the retail people only according to the sales they are getting. So according to that basically each and every things are connected with the retail industry by default basically it's retail industry, but the basically government is at last basically they activate the energy basically. Then only the basically vehicle gets starts. So one more example I will take. There is one school basically newly established, and in this basically the science lab, science stream is also basically they have started. So like this basically science subject is also there. For that basically they have established, they have started one lab basically. They created one lab. In lab basically they have taken the permission of the lab. Basically they told that we want to start the lab and we want to do some extra R&Ds basically for the student basically. So like this basically the government has given the approval, and basically they have taken 15 to 20 days for the permission basically. For that 15 to 20 days what actually they are doing that they need 15 to 20 days just basically one sign is required and few verification requests, but 15 to 20 days. So the reason basically behind this is, I will take one example. Basically, there are many formulas in the schools basically, which is basically teachers teaches you. In that basically, assume there is one formula that basically contain a plus b is c plus 3 like this basically science formula is there cos theta is beta, and basically there are many thetas basically. Exactly basically I am not a science student, so basically I will not able to explain you in science format, but basically I can tell you that there are few set of science formulas that connects with the theta, and many basically formulas are there. In that basically in books basically for example there are 100 formulas, right? So in 100 formulas each and every place basically wherever two attributes are getting signed basically, so getting addition or subtraction or division basically, there basically you have to just add one more plus sign or one more minus sign, that is of the government data basically. So wherever you find the formula there basically you automatically have to add plus or minus or division the government data. So the government data is whatever formula you are doing, and whenever it gets succeed basically. Basically, if the formula is getting succeed, that means basically the chemical which you are using basically in the lab basically that is getting connected with the energy basically. That is connected with the set of formulas basically you can say. If that time basically students were doing are doing the R&D, so basically that takes lots of time, lots of efforts basically, but at last basically they connect with the correct formula, but right, but the success gets activated when the government data is getting added. So in whatever books basically you get the formula, whatever formula, for example, there are 1,000 formulas, you have to add one more attributes, that is of government data. That is basically by default basically, because government keeps their control also, because government says that we are government, so we have to keep our control basically. So it's a by default. If school basically lab is like this controlled, then basically you can just imagine basically how the R&D centers are there of the big levels basically. Big level medical centers R&Ds are there. So there basically you can just imagine basically up to what level the controls are basically kept basically. So basically everywhere its control is there basically. So here basically why we are discussing this basically, because in formula word basically, in formula balance sheet, in formula attributes basically, you have to add this also. That is basically government data which is getting it by default basically. Directly you can't, because in books also you can't find the formula of the governments. Then basically in real life basically it's not easy to find the data. But basically you can at least basically can dump the dummy amount basically, because it's connected with some certain, we are basically here connected with some certain amount only, certain level of amount basically, which is getting going to add in the attributes of the formula, or attributes of the formula basically. So exact data basically government can't give, or government will basically going to tell this word only, that is basically we are going to keep our secrets. So that basically secret we have to keep basically. Otherwise basically one day you will tell, yeah, one day you will tell that very we don't need government basically. But that type of day might also come basically. So government basically thinks up to this level basically. They will say that we keep our basically value in the market basically, in the country, in the basically in country means you can add this as a countries also basically. Each and every countries basically government keeps their value. So like this basically, this is basically also you have to add basically. So here basically we are talking about sales basically. So from this only the sales has started. That is basically, if we add, if government is adding this all their formula basically, then basically World Bank also might be adding their formula also. That is basically by default basically. That is not supposed to be assumed also, because World Bank says that we are passing the data to the as per the subscription we have taken. So according to that, basically we are also adding our data also basically. That is by default basically. The World Bank will say we are also keeping our value basically. That is by default basically. That is human basically nature also you can say, because they keeps always keeps their value, always keeps their ethic basically you can say, always keeps their value. That also you can say. So like this basically governments governments each and every attributes, each and every data are also added in the formula word. And in the formula word basically, we formula is just word basically, but it's connected with set of attributes, and set of attributes gets plus minus and division, and that basically connects with the set of balance sheets basically. And the balance sheet get plus minus and division. So but that basically system basically that system basically project management plan for groups, and the PMP groups and the SDLC created, that is basically software development life cycle groups basically, who have created this SDLC. That group basically have to prepare this new basically system basically you can say, because balance sheet plus balance sheet basically, this type of thing basically system never basically you might not have you might never basically might have heard also basically, because this type of thing also have to be covered basically, because it's basically connected with the income of the software industry basically you can say. Because if software industry, if the SDLC group and the project management plan group basically will grow, then only basically each and every software companies basically will grow basically. That also you can say. So here basically we are stopping of the 66th formula word, and basically in 67th basically we are going to discuss little bit more about the formula word.